Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be joining us, whether it's daytime, nighttime, or in the middle of the day, as it is for those of us who are in the Midwest. Thank you for joining us for the May edition. Already May. How about that? We're almost going to turn the page and get to June. Edition of 3Squares. I am Charlie Arnott. So pleased to be your host today. I'm the CEO of the Center for Food Integrity and Look East, where collectively we work on keeping the food system trustworthy. And we're live today. My two co-hosts, Kevin Ryan and Susan Schwally.
And I'm Susan Schwally, 30-year market research veteran of food and beverage. I'm doing freelance work right now. So if your data needs a story told, or you need to understand what it means to your business or association, I'm your gal.
And she's joining us from her Tesla today, as you
I
can see if
am.
you're watching
I
on
am.
YouTube. Yes.
The acoustics are amazing.
I-
They are. Kevin Ryan, Malachite Strategy and Research, helping food and beverage companies at the front end of innovation and strategy.
And we are so fortunate today to have a repeat guest, which happens very irregularly. It's not often that we invite somebody back, which means they must be really, really good. So Ricky Volpe is back with us again today to talk about food inflation and all of the controversy and convoluted nature of food pricing today and all the concerns that people are expressing. Ricky is incredibly well qualified. He received his PhD in agriculture and resource economics from UC Davis in 2010. He then spent 4 years working at the USDA Economic Research Service as an economist. There he researched a variety of topics, including food price formation, competitiveness in the food industry, and the healthiness of grocery purchases in the United States. Ricky was also responsible for forecasting retail food price inflation at the national level, which makes him the penultimate expert on the topic today. Now at Cal Poly, which is the garden spot of the universe, Ricky teaches courses on food retail and supply chain management, transportation and logistics, and data analysis. And he also has a hefty and active research agenda. Ricky, thanks for making a repeat appearance.
Thanks for having me back.
Always great to talk to you. Always lots of good information. We have an opportunity to hear from you from time to time in different platforms and formats, and it's always very informative and stimulating. So we're going to jump right in because food inflation is something that impacts every single one of us. As we go to the store and we go, how did that happen? So why do consumers feel food inflation more intensely than the overall inflation numbers would suggest? Inflation is not limited to food, but for some reason it seems to be stickier. Why is that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's funny because sometimes, I'll be talking to somebody in the media and, for example, in the April CPI release, I think grocery prices jumped 0.7%, and I'm sort of starting to sound alarm bells about that. I'm like, that's a pretty big month-to-month jump. But I'll be talking to a reporter and they'll say that doesn't sound like a lot. That's less than a penny, right? That's a tiny bit, right? But these things really add up because food spending, first of all, of course, food is a necessity, right? We can't substitute away from food. We can make choices at the supermarket. We can choose between the supermarket and restaurants, but everyone's got to eat, right? So there's no getting around that. It's something we all have to buy, and we all have to buy regularly, right? So it's a necessity. We can't stop spending on it. And then because we buy it so regularly, we're really suffering from, you can call it observational bias. There's a lot of words for it, but it's the idea that it's a price that we see very regularly. And if we are repeat customers who go to the same store and we're used to buying the same products, we get accustomed to these price levels. And when they increase, we notice it, and then again, these increases, it might just be 10 cents here, 20 cents there, but these things add up substantially over time. A representative U.S. household spends thousands upon thousands of dollars. I should know the exact number at this point in my career. I don't. But a representative U.S. household spends, 12, 13% of their disposable income on food. It's several $1,000s, and that adds up a lot over the year. And the fact that we see it several times a week, in many cases, causes it to be something that we think about a lot and like to complain about.
Yeah. Are we, every time I go to the grocery store, I kind of like, wow, I noticed, I look at the prices and I'm like, oh, wow, that seems high. Are we kind of stuck now, and this is going to be the new normal of this is like, well, I guess I'm spending that much on canned soup now for the rest of our existence, or are we going to see a reprieve? Is there going to be a moment of relief? I mean, I know there's a lot of factors at play, but what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, unfortunately, right now I'm sort of feeling pessimistic about food prices. I wish I had good news. I wish I could say that relief is coming, but I kind of doubt it. As a general sort of macroeconomic observation, food prices almost never go down.
Mm-hmm.
That's the nature of general economy-wide inflation. And in fact, food price deflation is usually indicative of something worrisome, like an economic downturn,
Right.
consumer confidence going down, that sort of thing. But here's what I'll say that I view as maybe worrisome, and it's sort of a broader issue than what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz or whatever.
Right.
Pre-COVID, say 2018, 2019, if you asked me what is normal food price inflation, I would have said it's about 2% a year. Now here we are in what year is this? 2026, and I am more inclined to say normal food price inflation is about 2.5%. I think what we
Mm.
think of as like that rolling historical average has kind of creeped up. From
Mm.
my perspective, this is hard to prove, but from my perspective, a lot of that has to do with really, really deeply ingrained labor issues throughout the whole food system. I think labor has become scarce, it's become expensive, turnover's up, companies are having a hard time holding on to institutional knowledge, and I think that's accelerated food price inflation. So
Mm.
that's the foundation we find ourselves at now, where we're dealing with a bunch of really acute, timely issues with surging energy prices, higher fertilizer prices. We're worried about water shortages in the West and in the East. It's a worrisome time, and I think we're in for a year of above average food price inflation. So not only do I think food prices aren't going to come down, I think food price inflation is going to stay accelerated through the end of the year.
Mm.
Yikes.
So, Ricky, you may not know this about me, but when I'm in a grocery store, people tend to talk to me.
Dude,
They'll
me
come up
too.
to me proactively and give me their salmon dip recipes, or sometimes I ask them for help, and I get in these conversations. And oftentimes, I swear to God, unprompted, they will make a comment about how the manufacturers are ripping them off or the retailers. And you know what? I just try to listen and not get on my soapbox. So, my question to you, Ricky, is what is the number one thing that the average American misunderstands about food inflation?
That's a great question, and it actually ties in very nicely with Charlie's question that we kicked things off because Charlie was asking, "Hey, why do we feel food price inflation?" And I think we buy it all the time. There's a recency and observational bias, but here's where the misconception comes in. For the overwhelming majority of shoppers, the only time that they see food prices is in the supermarket. They
Mm.
see that sticker or that shelf tag or whatever it may be, and there's an implicit assumption that that price is coming from the retailer, right? So if the price of avocados has gone up, it's because my local supermarket is trying to make more money, right? They're a profit maximizing firm and they've decided to raise prices because it's just time to do that, And of course, I'm oversimplifying. And of course, there are plenty of educated people who understand it's more complex than that. But it's also hard to fault folks who have absolutely no idea what the inside of the food supply chain looks like and how complex these machinations are that gets food from the farm, from the ranch to the supermarket. So I think that a lot of the messaging and understanding and policy about food prices, inflation, and all that, I think a lot of that will go smoother if we collectively make an effort to educate, households, consumers, shoppers, just like the public and the media about these really, really large macroeconomic forces that are, bigger than your local supermarket. They're even bigger than the big guys, right? They're bigger than these national chains. We're talking about the global price of crude oil, right? We're talking about nationwide labor shortages. We're talking about extreme weather events. I'm the first to admit that I'm sure within the food system there are some bad actors, but they are greatly outnumbered by food companies that are dealing with cost pressures and shrinking margins and just doing their best to stay afloat and keep the shelves stocked.
No one's ever approached me in a supermarket. Kevin,
Well,
has anybody ever approached you, Kevin?
I had one woman one time ask me if I could reach a can on a very high shelf.
Ah,
oh no,
okay.
that
All right.
doesn't
Well,
that
that's
no,
legit. That's legit.
that
That
doesn't
was
count.
legit, but I don't go into large conversations about salmon dip. No.
No, no.
Mm-mm.
And then on airplanes, I have the "Don't Talk to Me" bubble up as well. I don't.
Well, I put headphones on an
You got
airplane.
to have the
Okay.
earbuds in. That's
Yeah.
the only
Oh,
way
Yeah.
to
that
make
does
But
it.
in the
That's the "Don't Talk to Me" thing.
in
Okay,
the
I
grocery
guess the two.
store, look, they feel my market, my food and beverage
They do.
research aura.
It
They feel
is.
it. They feel it.
It
It's
is.
your aura.
They
Okay,
know.
cool.
They yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
good for you. Good for
Mhm.
you. I'm
Thanks.
glad for you.
Thanks.
Okay, Ricky, back to the topic at hand. This one's kind of interesting. I hope it's not too complex, but let's say that you are the person in charge of everything and you have the opportunity to advise policymakers, food companies, and consumers separately, right? So three different groups: policymakers, food companies, and consumers. What's the single most important thing that each group should understand about food inflation at the right moment? Because to your point earlier, people are looking for a villain here, right? Who's causing this? Who do I need to blame? And who do I need to call before Congress? And who should I sue? And who should I complain about, right? I mean, it's where we are in this moment. So what advice would you give to food companies, policymakers, and consumers?
Policymakers. Policy is something I think a lot about. Laws, regulations, teach a class on it. From my perspective as an economist, I truly believe, and look, I'm in California, which I think has the most regulated food system of the 50 states. I mean, there's a case to be made that the California food system, agriculture and manufacturing is subject to a wider suite of regulations than the federal food system. But at any rate, most, if not all, regulations that I'm aware of or that I see proposed or put into law are well intentioned. We need food to be safe, right? We need customers to understand what's in the product, right? I understand all of this, right? We need to support, small food companies, but a lot of regulations have unintended consequences, right? And probably the biggest unintended consequence that I sort of see materializing from all these laws and regulations is a higher cost of business for food companies. So for policymakers, and this is much easier said than done, but I would really like to see broad multi-market, omni-market cost benefit analyses undertaken for potential policies to understand, look, are we addressing a market failure? Sure, right? But how do the likely or potential benefits of this enhancement stack up against the costs that will be borne by some combination of food companies and consumers? I don't see that kind of math happening very often, and I've spent a significant amount of time in Sacramento at grocers' days and events like that. So I would strongly encourage more thinking in that direction before we sign the paper and put laws into place. Food companies, I'm just going to sort of rehash something that I've been saying for years. Data, 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 right? It is amazing to me how many, and I would imagine Susan would agree. It is amazing to me how many food companies throughout the system, large, small, otherwise, are not capitalizing on what an amazing resource their data can be to get an idea, cut through the noise, understand what's coming down the pipeline, help to predict demand, help to improve inventory management, help to prevent food loss, help to find optimal pricing strategies. This is not super high level ivory tower Ricky Volpe econ nerd stuff, right? This is a few really well designed spreadsheets that can help reduce costs, improve margins, and really, improve operations, right? And then for consumers, there's a lot I could say here. We've already sort of covered that like broad misconception about where food price inflation comes from. But for consumers, what I would say right now is that as food price inflation ticks up, and we're probably in for a challenging back half of 2026, I would remind folks that it is still and it will remain less expensive to shop at the supermarket and prepare food at home. Because there's sort of a growing narrative, and I get it, part of it's just marketing, I totally understand, but there's a growing narrative that says, hey, look, food price inflation is crazy, and you might even be able to save money by eating out, right? Fast food, quick service, whatever. That's not true. And that's demonstrably not true. And I'm not telling people don't eat, but if you're worried about saving money, if you're worried about your food budget increasing, it is always less expensive to make smart choices in the supermarket than it is to eat out. I
Can,
think that about covers it.
can I tell you what my breakfast was this morning for a vegan burrito?
Oh,
Nice.
what?
A vegan burrito. Charlie had to avoid gluten and eggs, right? So I had a vegan burrito with a side of potatoes. $16.75.
Yeah.
Wait, was that a supermarket or a restaurant?
That was a restaurant.
Oh yeah. Okay, great.
$16.75, not including my coffee.
Right. So is that like plant-based sausage or like tofu?
Uh, I think it was tofu.
And
Yeah.
what was the tortilla made from?
I don't know. It was green.
Hmm.
I,
Kale.
maybe it
Oh
was a
It could have
kale
God.
been a
tortilla.
No,
spinach,
no.
spinach wrap or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it
Right.
yeah.
could have been. Yeah.
Okay,
But
well,
that is a
Anyway,
lot to pay for a burrito.
it is.
I,
That's true.
I was like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Ricky is right. I totally
Ricky's
agree.
right.
I
Yeah,
totally
yeah, yeah.
agree. Ricky, I want to go back to something you said when you were talking about how, one of the things that people are, it's the most visceral aspect of inflation is the grocery store. I also think like gasoline, because every time you drive past a
Hmm.
gas station, you always see the gas, and it's the one number I see every day, right? If I'm
Yep.
driving, I see it. And the same thing with gas, you can watch the market and it's like oil dropped, and it's like, why doesn't my gas drop? I know there's a long chain, and I should probably know that chain to be able to understand that. I should probably know too, and this is my question, is like, what's the relationship between the agricultural commodity prices and what consumers pay at retail? Because when you see those markets drop, at least I think, the prices like on agricultural commodity prices drop, why doesn't grocery prices drop right away? So can you untangle that a little bit? Like how can we think about that, the connection between the two?
Sure, sure, sure. So food prices have long been described as sort of exhibiting this pattern that we in economics call rockets and feathers. So when inflation picks up, the prices shoot up like rockets, and when prices come down, if at all, they come down like feathers, right? So
Yeah,
fast
yeah,
inflation and slow deflation.
yeah, yeah.
And a lot of that, there's two main reasons for that. One is that there are so many moving pieces that affect food price formation. So even when there is temporary relief in agricultural commodity prices, which by the way, I do want to address, you asked what's the relationship, and this is something I've done some work on.
Yeah.
You can look at, for example, the field corn PPI or farm prices as an index. Those indices are very, very closely correlated with retail food prices. The correlation's in the 90s historically. So it's a very, very strong correlation. But the magnitude of the impact of upstream commodity price changes on retail
Mhm.
prices is maybe not for you, but for the general public is surprisingly very, very low, right?
Right.
And a lot of that, becomes you can look at the latest edition of the USDA food dollar, and you can see that ag commodity prices are, I mean, something like 8% of the retail food dollar, something very, very, I think it's single digits now. It's very, very small. So the capacity for commodity prices to really, shake food prices, retail food prices up and down is limited. Okay. So ag commodity prices are just one mover, right? There's energy, labor,
Mhm.
overhead, rent, all these other factors that affect food price formation. Most of them in any point in time are sort of trudging along, right? So even some short-term relief for commodity prices doesn't necessarily counteract overall macroeconomic inflation, right? So that's probably point number one. But the other is that retail food prices are famously rigid. They're famously sticky. And there's a good reason for that. And it's changing slowly, but grocery stores, supermarkets face something called menu costs. It's a term that ironically comes from food servers, from restaurants, but it's literally the cost of changing prices. It is an expensive and somewhat complex undertaking for a retailer to change prices for
Mm.
45,000 unique products in the supermarket, right? So inflation picks up. And the irony about this comes back to also to Charlie's point about, misconceptions and all that. People hear this and they think, oh, these retailers, like those prices are just staying put even though commodity prices are coming down.
Mm.
I'll bet their margins are exploding. It's actually usually the opposite. It's usually that retailers are reticent to increase their prices until upstream costs hit a threshold where they have no choice because they are weary to bear those costs of increasing menu prices. They got to do it online, they got to do it in their marketing materials, they got to do it throughout the store and their advertising and all of that. And then on top of that, in today's era where everyone's got a smartphone and social media and Yelp and all that, you know that if your local grocery store increases their prices across the board, that's going to show up, right? People are going
Yeah.
to be posting about it and complaining. Your goodwill goes down. So retail prices are sticky, and when commodity prices come down, it's not as if retailers even feasibly can say, "Sweet, let's lower prices."
Right.
Oh,
I thought
wow. Okay.
Rockets and Feathers was the name of a 70s hair band.
Oh
Probably
yeah,
was.
That was your high school band, Charlie.
Ah, got it. Well, it
I
could be
actually
a
thought
band of
maybe this was
economists,
an
Ricky. I
REM
mean, you
album.
play the
That
it
would
could
be.
be a band of economists.
Could
There
be.
you go. There's your band name.
But it's definitely a thought. We've been tossing around at least maybe our first album. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like
you're
it.
welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Uh, can I ask the crystal ball question? So, Ricky, you just explained a very complex system in which there are all kinds of inputs that drive costs, not commodities. That's interesting. Do you see anything coming that will help with food inflation? You've said it's not going to go down, our pricing. But what do you see out there that potentially could help with this or mitigate some
Yeah,
of it?
so as I said at the beginning of the call, I've been getting a lot of calls lately from the media, from the press about food price inflation, and because my sort of expertise on this is in demand when inflation is going up, it's tempting to think that it's all doom and gloom. Might surprise you to learn, I'm actually an optimist. I'm a
Mm.
long-term optimist, and it's largely because of what we saw during COVID-19. COVID-19 was an unprecedented shock. It was a hopefully once in a century, effect. And the food system held the course. I mean, of course, there were problems and there was food price inflation, and there were some limited shortages, but people were fed, right? The fruits and vegetables were still stocked, right? It was not the catastrophe that I think a lot of us were afraid of in March and April of 2020. Okay, so largely kickstarted by COVID-19. If you look closely, if you look at the firm level, if you look at what's going on with investments and all that kind of stuff, food companies up and down the chain are making investments and they're evolving and they're changing in a way that's really, really fortifying the business and getting it ready for the next several decades. They're investing in renewable energy, they're investing in automation and mechanization, they're using AI to streamline their data collection process, analyze their data, and gain insights. So those, oh, and a lot of really, really awesome high tech stuff happening with like indoor agriculture. I'm sure you guys are aware of like CEA and all that. It's very expensive, right? The upfront costs are high, but they're coming down with every passing year, and we are on the cusp of being able to produce fruits and vegetables, in a broad sense, in a way that is detached from the soil, water, and labor needs that we think of going up and down California and Arizona. So it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in time to reverse the course on food price inflation for 2026. But I really think within a decade, our food system is going to be much higher tech, much more resilient, much more resistant to severe weather or energy prices. And the future is overall bright if they stay the course and continue to make these investments.
Wow, very
I
interesting.
feel better.
I do
It's
too.
it's good to end on a note of optimism. And now it's time to transition for everyone's favorite part of 3 Squares with Quizmaster Kevin Ryan.
Woo!
All right. I had a tough time, not tough time. I had a different time kind of coming up with this one because I was like, oh, it's summer. I think I've done summer things before. And so I started to put myself in my mind of like when I was a kid, what did summer mean? And I don't know if it's because I have boomer parents, but like for me, my parents were never like, hey, we're going to take you to a camp. It was, you got to work around the house. It was like, you got to wash a baseboard or reorganize the pantry, the cupboards. That was my
Oh,
thing. Reorganize the so I think that's where I got really good with knowing my food brands because it was let's organize the cupboard. So this quiz is about kind of the food brands that I would run into when I was reorganizing the cupboard. So that's what this is
Okay.
about. So I know that's a stretch, but that's what we're in for.
is this a 70s time frame, Kevin?
It is kind of a
Which
70s,
okay,
80s kind of thing.
okay,
Is like some of the
okay,
some of the brands here are definitely 70s and 80s. Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. Okay. First question. Cheese Whiz is a product so deeply embedded in American food culture that Philadelphia used it as the defining ingredient in a cheesesteak. What was Cheese Whiz actually developed for? Okay, what was it actually developed for? Was it A, Kraft developed Cheese Whiz in the early 1950s as a shelf-stable military field ration cheese for U.S. Army troops during the Korean War because it required no refrigeration for up to 6 months, and then it was adapted for civilian market afterward. So that's A. B, Cheese Whiz was developed by Kraft in 1950 specifically for the British market as a convenient short step from making Welsh rarebit, which is a traditional UK dish of melted cheese over toast, if you've ever had that. It launched in the UK and then came here. So that's B. C, Kraft designed Cheese Whiz as a standardized topping for American drive-in restaurant chains in the early 50s as those started to boom because it allowed for consistent meltability that was used across across those different chain restaurants. Or is it D, Cheese Whiz actually was developed by a small Philadelphia company for the Philly cheesesteak trade at the direct request of Pat Oliveira, who's Pat's, if you've ever been there, because he needed it for his cheesesteaks. And then later it was sold to Kraft.
Mm.
So which one was it?
Man,
Was
I
it?
thought it
so
was something to do with like NASA.
Hmm?
Well, that'd be close to military. Ricky, you go first. By the way,
Yeah,
Cheese Whiz is not what you should have on a Philly cheesesteak. It's
I
I
Yeah,
didn't
so
know
no,
it
I'm gonna go
melted.
with
military, not Velveeta, Cheese Whiz.
yeah, I
So,
understand. That's
military, was it the British market for rarebit? Was it for American drive-through restaurants, or was it for the Philadelphia cheesesteaks?
I'm going A, military.
Military. Okay.
I
Susan,
was
Charlie.
I was gonna go military, but since we strike out so often, I'm gonna try and go for coverage.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go. It's for Pat.
Okay. It's developed for Pat.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, those were my twos. I'm gonna go with military just because.
Okay.
But if it's military, that was my first choice. Just going on the record.
Well, it wasn't for any of those. It was actually developed for Welsh rarebit.
Of
It was
course it was.
originally developed in Britain. It was engineered
Man.
for British housewives to get the consistency. If you ever had a really good rarebit, it's actually
Yeah.
hard because usually the cheese you use is an aged cheddar, which does not melt well.
Separates. Yeah.
So you have to
Oh.
use it. And then it was brought here. So, okay. So that's Cheese Whiz.
I
Number
loved Cheese Whiz. Putting it on the crackers, making designs, and I mean,
No.
yeah, it wasn't really food, but it was fun.
number two, Tang. Really getting into
Tang.
the stuff. Tang powder was
Oh.
a commercial flop from its 1959 launch into sales suddenly exploded in the mid 60s. What rescued Tang from obscurity? Was
I
it
know this.
A, General Foods reformulated it with a higher vitamin C content and repositioned it as a pediatric supplement, winning endorsement from the American Academy of Pediatrics? Was it B, a massive shortage of fresh oranges following back-to-back Florida frost seasons pushed people toward Tang? Was it C, Kraft ran a sweepstakes tied to the 1964 World's Fair in New York that gave away free canisters with every appliance purchase at participating retailers? Or was it D, NASA selected it for the Gemini, which is how the NASA pronounced Gemini. It's Gemini space mission because it masked the unpleasant taste of the spacecraft's water supply, and the Space Program Association turned a failed grocery product into a cultural icon.
All those really smart people, you think they would learn how to pronounce the word.
Right. It is actually pronounced Gemini, but yeah.
Get with it, Charlie.
It's
I'm going
NASA.
NASA.
It's
NASA. Charlie, did you say what did you
I
say?
said NASA. I said NASA.
Okay.
Well, I have to say NASA because that's what I thought Cheese Whiz was.
Okay, it is NASA. I thought maybe I'd fool you. I thought maybe I'd give you better ones because I think a lot of people think of
the
Tang
drink
and
of
NASA.
astronauts
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
astronaut.
and food
It
sticks
is.
and food sticks.
Well, that was General
Yeah.
Mills. General
I
Mills
know,
actually
but that
came
was
up
the
with
original
food sticks.
protein bar, right?
Yes,
I mean,
Kevin,
yeah,
yeah,
it was.
You're slipping on that one. You got to
Well,
redeem
I
yourself
really
on the
wanted
next
to
one.
put it in because I remember sorting Tang in the cupboard. So I was like, what do I know
Okay,
about
that's
Tang?
fair.
So that
That's
was number
fair.
7.
Yeah.
That's
we
what
used
it was.
we used it to stretch orange juice. That's how
Oh,
we used it.
okay. Okay. Yeah,
So
I
we
can
would
see
mix
that.
it with we could mix it with like powdered milk and regular people. I did not down with that where you mix powdered milk and pasteurized milk. That didn't work. But
It
stretching
always
orange
reminds
juice with Tang that worked.
it always reminds me of like the orange drink you get at McDonald's, which I always
Oh,
remember they
yeah,
used to
Yeah,
have
yeah,
on the fun runs. They used to have like a
yeah.
giant
Yeah.
cooler of orange drink, which it's just
Okay.
Pure
Didn't
Kool-Aid.
Letterman mix together Spam and Tang and call it Spang?
I don't remember that, but it sounds like something Letterman would do.
I think so. I'll
Yeah.
try and find a YouTube.
Yeah.
Here
Okay.
we go.
Number 3, the 57 varieties printed on every Heinz bottle is one of the most recognizable numbers in American consumer marketing. What does 57, what does that number mean? Is it A, the number accurately reflects Heinz product count in 1896 when the slogan launched? It became inaccurate only after the company expanded internationally, but Heinz kept it on for brand
Their
continuity.
total product count, not ingredients in the sauce.
Right.
Okay.
Is it B, the number 57 was deliberately chosen because it was the highest number that consumer research at the era showed felt credible to consumers? Numbers above 60 registered as implausibly large, while numbers below 50 seemed thin. It was an early application of qualitative consumer psychology used in marketing to get a trustworthy number for the brand. Was it C, when H.J. Heinz introduced the slogan in 1896, his company was already selling more than 60 products. The number was fabricated. Specifically, Heinz combined his own lucky numbers, 5, with his wife's lucky number of 7, and got the idea from a train advertisement for 21 styles of shoes. He thought, well, 57 makes sense to put on my label. Or was it D, 57 varieties was originally a legal classification, number assigned by the USDA's first food labeling regime in 1894, referring to category 57, which was preserved vegetables, and Heinz just adopted it for their label.
I'm going with lucky numbers just because it's fun. I don't
Okay.
think there's a chance in heck it's going to be right, but it sounds fun.
I'm going to go D because 57 varieties does not make sense to me in any possible other
Okay.
way.
Ricky?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, I was gonna say C, but I want to do coverage here, so I'm gonna go with A. 'Cause I think A is plausible.
Okay. It is C. It is the lucky
Damn it!
numbers. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He admitted it himself in writing that they already had more than 60, and so he liked it and he put them together. Yeah. And it all came from seeing the seeing the advertisement
For
and then
shoes.
think, oh, there's
Yeah.
yeah. All right, number 4. In 2008, Procter & Gamble went to court in the UK to argue that Pringles were not potato chips. This was not a philosophical question. What was at stake? What was at stake when they were arguing? Was it A, P&G was fighting a class action lawsuit from traditional potato chip manufacturers claiming that Pringles had fraudulently used the word chip in their marketing for 40 years, and they argued Pringles were technically a potato-based extruded snack? Was it B,
Hang on.
P&G?
I'm not following the premise here. So
Yes.
they went to court to argue that it was not a chip. P&G
Yes.
did, and
Yes.
P&G was a manufacturer.
Yes. Yes. They were being sued by the government, and they were saying
Okay.
we are not a potato chip, right? Was it B, P&G was trying to avoid the UK's 17.5% VAT tax on potato snacks by arguing that Pringles were more like a cake or a biscuit than a chip, given that the product is only 42% potato and has a shape, as the lawyers put it, not found in nature? Was it C, the UK had strict rules about potato snacks sold in the country because they must be made from UK potatoes? P&G argued that they used a UK developed variety of potato and that the actual law did not require the potato to actually be grown on the UK shores, just be a variety of UK potato. Or was it D, a UK trade standards ruling that determined Pringles could not be sold in school cafeterias under the junk food classification, and P&G was seeking a snack food exemption based on the product's wheat and corn content? Why did they go to court? Why did they go to court? Did they go to court for the idea that they were not a chip? Did they go because of the VAT tax? And they said that they were actually not even that, they were a cake or a biscuit? Was it that they were not made from UK potatoes? Or was it the fact that they're school cafeterias? Why did they go
I'm
to
going
court?
B.
B.
Yeah, the VAT tax makes sense to me, but Ricky already got that, so I'm going to go for coverage as well. I'll go D for the school snacks.
Oh, those are my 2. Dang you. So what does that leave me, Kevin? It leaves me.
Not a chip, or they weren't made from UK potatoes.
UK potatoes.
I'll go UK potatoes.
Okay. It is the VAT tax. It is the VAT tax. So they argued that they were not made that they were made of 42% potato, so they couldn't be anything but, and the shape is not a natural shape. So
Not shape not found in
not
nature.
found.
I love
Quote. That's an actual quote
Really?
from the lawsuit.
I don't know about that. I think there's leaves that are that shape.
I don't know. They've patented that shape. There is a name for it. I forget what it's called. It's some sort of parabola. But anyway,
Okay.
Almost like a Mobius strip type thing,
yes,
right?
it is a very
Yes.
unusual shape. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Anything else that would fit inside of a tennis ball tube. Okay,
Yeah.
5. Crisco, the shortening in virtually every American pie crust recipe, is now considered an iconic American kitchen product. What was Crisco actually developed for? Why did P&G originally develop Crisco? Was it A, Crisco was originally developed to replace tallow in P&G's soap and candle manufacturing after the meatpacking monopoly drove up lard prices? And then when hydrogenated cottonseed oil turned out to be edible and lard-like, P&G pivoted to selling in food? Was it B, P&G developed Crisco as a lubricant for industrial textile looms, where cottonseed oil's viscosity outperformed petroleum grease? And then when food grade certification came along, they were like, well, let's use it for that. Is it C, Crisco was a failed military ration component, originally developed as a shelf-stable, highly caloric supplement for use within the U.S. military,
That's
in the
just
U.S. Army?
gross.
Well, if you've ever had pemmican, you know that that's not unusual for fighting troops to have stuff like that. Or is it D, Crisco originated as a replacement for whale oil in candle manufacturing after international whaling restrictions tightened in the 1890s? So is it tallow for soap and candles? Is it industrial lubricant? Is it a military ration? Or is it whale oil replacement?
I'm going to go replacing tallow.
Okay.
Hey,
I'm going industrial lubricant.
Okay. Ricky?
Yeah,
You don't have to become.
no, but I'm gonna pick it because it's so out there. I'm going whale.
Okay,
D.
I do love the whale one, but that is wrong.
Yes.
Charlie is correct. It is tallow. It was originally a replacement for tallow, so for use in candles and soap. So originally when they did it, it was like, how do we take all the massive cottonseed oil infrastructure that we've got and put it into something that would be used for soap? And then they pivoted to.
I don't buy it. You ever try to wash your hands after you touch Crisco? It's an industrial lubricant.
Well, but soap is made, it's
yeah.
saponification. You have to saponify it, and
Right.
then you get it.
It's why you made soap from lye and tallow.
I know, but
Yes, getting Crisco off your hands is very difficult. That is true.
thank you.
Yes, it is. It is.
No question.
You
I
and your
believe-
saponification or whatever.
I believe Charlie. I think
I got 3
he
out of
did.
5.
I
He
think
got
you
3
did.
out of 5.
No
But
one's
he
counting or
stole
anything.
answers from Ricky and I. Let's be
Right.
fair.
Right.
Right, Ricky? We were robbed by Charlie.
Hey,
know
I
that.
think I got them all wrong last time. So me getting 2 is actually
That is really
Yeah.
good.
There you go.
That is really
Moving in
good.
the right direction.
But as people are cleaning out their cupboards and everything else, remember, all of these trivia things about everything.
Yeah, just don't keep Crisco in your pantry for 2 years and then try to use it. That's a bad
I
start.
remember
Oh.
going in my aunt's pantry one time and opening up, and it was black.
Really?
Oh, it goes rancid.
It
goes
can.
rancid pretty quick.
It absolutely
Yeah.
can.
Okay.
Not good. All right. Hey, thank you for joining us. Ricky, as always, so much great information and presented in a way that it's easily digested for those of us who are non-economists. So thank you for
Thank you.
sharing that gift with us very much. And thank you for joining us for the May edition of 3Squares. It's always a pleasure to have you along. Please join us again in June for another edition of 3Squares with Kevin Ryan, Susan Schwally, and myself, Charlie Arnott. In the meantime, if you would like to reach out to us, you can do so via email at 3squaresmail@gmail.com, the numeral 3squaresmail@gmail.com. Until then, have a great and delightful, safe beginning to your summer, and we'll catch you next time on 3Squares. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.